It was the kind of afternoon Lisbon reserves for late autumn, moist, cold drizzle bead streaking the granite streets, and a heavy, metallic sky pressing against the city. My knuckles were white around my mother's old umbrella. My heart threatened to leap from my chest, and there I was, 17 and trembling, standing before a semicircle of deep-set eyes and folded arms in the shadowed nave of the Santa Lucia Community Hall. The air smelled of wet wool and old stone, my shoes squeaked as I stepped forward, and I swore everyone heard it. Grandmother Olmeda, back straight and lips pressed together in disdain, all but glared me into the floorboards. To my left, Father Duart leafed through a pile of letters from apprentices seeking work in Germany, and above the noise the hall's windows drummed with rain. The most humbling, though, was my father, his face a blank wall, the tips of his ears red. I'd spent nights, months really, hiding my dreams in secret motes of fire beneath my ribs, to leave the Port District to become a chef. Not a line cook at a pastelaria or another server at the Tascas under the viaduct, but truly a chef, a creator of beautiful things. The brasses and spices, the sizzle and invention, the transformation of what we had into something extraordinary. I'd spent more time with the battered cookbooks my mother left behind than with any friend. Some nights hunger gnawed at me, but it was nothing compared to the longing. But now, standing there in that equi church hall, my voice seemed to fail. The faces pressing in, some angry, some amused, others quietly shaking their heads, made me want to shrink into the woodwork. Tia Lewis's shrill laugh drifted through. "A chef, you mean a cook in a hotel's basement? We need more doctors, not dreamers." "Or at least an honest metalworker like his father before him," Uncle Gilberto piped in, his voice sharp as cheap port. Father Duart didn't smile. "Your father works hard every day. When have you ever come to confession for your pride, Joe?" I swallowed. I couldn't even see my father's eyes, just his calloused hands. "It's not pride." My tongue stumbled. I believe if I work, if I can train, one day I could bring honor to the family. I can cook, really cook. I have ideas, dishes." The snickers grew louder. Even my sister, Katarina, shrank into the pew, as if proximity made her complicit in my lunacy. "It's ridiculous," grandmother spat, syllable by syllable, as if the word itself were olive pits she wanted out of her mouth. The council put their verdict in before I even finished speaking. "Impossible. We do not waste seed on rocky soil. If you must throw your life away, Joe, do it quietly and do not shame us. You have nothing, no money, no connections, not even proper shoes." Afterward, when everyone else had drifted into the tunnels of afternoon rain, my father caught up to me under the archway by the tram stop. The yellow 28 squealed to a halt. He didn't look at me. "I was a fool for letting you believe in fairy tales, Philho," he murmured, and pressed a €5 note into my palm. "For your dinner. Don't mention this again to your grandmother." I wanted to believe there was affection in it. Maybe there was pity, tenderness and steel mixed in that moment, sorrow and a quiet, stubborn anger under my skin. I hid my face from the window, and as the tram shuddered up the hill, I told myself I would never sit in that hall again until I had something nobody could deny. I washed dishes in the evenings at Tasca do Chico, sometimes until 2 in the morning, my shoes soaked, fingers split from detergent and hot water. Some Tuesday nights when the cook went for a smoke, I'd sneak tastes from bubbling pans. I memorized textures and salt. Once, experimenting, I slipped a spoonful of piri-piri sauce into the caldo verde. The regulars noticed. They made fun of the extra heat, barked with laughter, but the owner's son nodded at me. Maybe he recognized something alive under my awkward apologies. Saving for cooking school was like bailing out the Atlantic with a thimble. My father never spoke of it again. Sometimes I wondered if he even cared, or if I'd just become a missing piece he could not find the words to grieve. When I left for Porto, having cobbled together a scholarship and a suitcase of patched shirts, battered boots, they didn't see me to the station. Katarina pushed a bag of pastéis de nata into my hands, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "For when Lisbon gets lonely," she whispered, "Porto's winter smelled of river fog and wine." The Escola Superior de Hoteleria was a fortress of discipline and chaos. My first months there I almost failed out. My accent marked me, a Lisbota city boy, a dreamer whose knives were too slow. They paired me with Raoul, a classmate whose patience ran thin. Once in the walk-in fridge he cornered me. "You'll never last. This isn't a bakery in Grassa. We don't have time for your inventions." But at night, when the world slept, I cooked on the battered camp stove in my closet of a room. experiments with sardines and jam, tempura of bacalhau, pretending for a moment I was building a place even the doubters of Lisbon would one day crave. Every criticism just added more steel to my spine. Tenderness I hid inside the food. Years passed. The real world pressed in harsh as winter fog. I worked prep in hotel kitchens, scraping bones, sorting tomatoes grown in too much sun. Every holiday, the same letter from my family. Hope you are well, no money to spare. Katarina married a mechanic. Come home, Joe. Your grandfather's lamb stew wins the community prize again this year. But I stayed away, burning from within. Slowly I rose, sous chef at a dockside bistro, inventing a squid ink yoli that got my name into a side column of a local paper, then a year at a fashionable Lisbon taberna that overlooked the city lights. I sent money home, no letters came back. It was 5 years before ambition and luck brought me to Onda. The restaurant was tiny, a closet of 17 covers wedged between second-hand bookstores in Alfama. The owner, an aging French-Portuguese woman named Amélie, wore chef whites like battle armor and demanded respect for her sacred kitchen. "If you burn my rice, I will burn you," she joked the day she hired me. But it was there, weaving together memories of my mother's salt cod, the bitterness of my grandmother's rejection, and the citrus from stolen oranges, that I resurrected the dream I dared to birth in that church hall. I built a tasting menu that married old recipes, caldo verde with chlorophyll oil grilled octopus with fava bean puree so creamy it made strangers cry. Critics came. They left sometimes confused, more often delighted. One evening late, I found myself on the quay overlooking the glimmering city below, the Tagus rolling out to the dark Atlantic, bitter wind lifting the fragrance of cinnamon and salt from my jacket. Everything I had craved, respect, recognition, finally came when Michelin called, slipping a single silver star beside Onda's name. The weeks that followed were a blur of interviews and congratulations from people I'd never known. But no word came from my family from Santa Lucia. Even Katarina's short, staccato texts grew rare. Some mornings I wondered if it all mattered, breadwinning or start chasing, when the people I burned for simply turned away. One March, after an especially long winter, Amélie pulled me aside after service. She held out a faded, dog-eared invitation. "You have been trying so hard to impress people you have never fed," she said gently, hands soft on my shoulders. "Go home." I nearly refused, but something inside me, call it weariness or a strange, sudden hope, forced me to take the tram north the following Friday, back to the neighborhood I'd tried so hard to forget. Santa Lucia had changed and not changed. Laundry still snapped on the wires between whitewashed houses, stray cats curled on broken stone. The community hall still leaned into the square like an old woman resting on her elbow, stained glass throwing drowsy colors on chipped tile. Service was ending as I arrived, the same faces, older, more lined but just as formidable. At the door, Tia Luisa was doling out peas de Deus, sticky-fingered and pink-faced. She saw me and gasped, hand to mouth. "Well, look at who the Tagus brought back." Inside, my father sat hunched near the nave, a wool cap hiding his thinning hair. Katarina hovered close with a young girl, my niece, I guessed from the tilt of her nose. Nobody said my name. I asked to speak. Father Duart raised an eyebrow, but perhaps he sensed something because he gave me the floor. I stepped to the center, feeling 16 again, trembling, but I summoned the chef's voice I'd honed across cramped kitchens and noisy pass-throughs. I unzipped my bag and drew out the star, a blue and silver-cut crystal on black velvet. Silence rippled out. I laid it on the altar. "This is not for boasting," I said, swallowing. "But for all of you who told me there was nothing worth chasing beyond these streets. I couldn't have done this without the flavors I learned from my mother, my grandmother, from the festas here, these hands." I held them out, the old knife scars white against my skin. They murmured, shifting. My father's eyes shone, liquid and uncertain, as if he half expected me to vanish like steam. "As thanks," I went on, lowering my voice, "I'd like to cook for you, for all of you. One meal made from what exists here, from these walls and gardens." My mouth was dry, but I pressed on. "It's Onda's food, but you are the heart of it." Some scoffed. "Fancy tricks won't fill a stomach," someone grumbled. But Father Duart nodded, eyes unreadable. "Let him cook." It was an act of stubborn hope or foolhardy pride, maybe both. The next Sunday I set up a portable burner on the battered linoleum of the community hall's kitchen, my old hands trembling as I arranged ingredients. Bacalhau, parsley, citrus, chorizo, apples from Katarina's garden, the last wild honey of the season. The old women eyed me, whispering, but curiosity sharpened their words. I worked with a kind of gravity, every movement measured, hands moving swiftly, but inside I was loose-threaded and floating. Katarina watched her daughter perched on the counter, eyes wide. I let her taste the citrus foam, let her touch the salt. When it came time to serve, the hall filled with steam and color. I brought out small plates, nothing fancy but each a labor of years. Crispy sardine on cornbread, caldo verde with a sliver of chorizo and a floating cloud of parsley oil, chunks of cod glazed in garlic, a final round of honeyed apples and rosemary. I described each dish as I presented it, voice steadier now, conjuring memories for them in the flavors. The sea in the brine, Sunday after church in the softness of bread, my mother's ghost dancing in the curls of lemon zest. They ate. At first skepticism, but silence grew one mouthful at a time. Tia Lewisa, so quick to laugh at my arrogance, set down her fork and wiped her eyes with her apron. Grandmother Olmeida, once fierce and unyielding, chewed slowly, lips parted, gaze far away. Afterward there was applause, uncertain at first, then rolling and full, hands slapping together in warmth rather than mockery. My father stood, swaying a little, and came to the front. He took my hand, the skin was heavy and work-worn, trembling. "Your mother would be proud," he whispered, voice rough as old rope. "You made us see what was always here, but we'd forgotten." Then suddenly everyone wanted to hug me, press their hands to my shoulders, invite me in, skeptics and doubters alike. The proof was in the taste, as undeniable as the smell of rain on a Lisbon street, as solid as the steeple of Santa Lucia. Night gathered, shadows stretching across the square. I lingered outside, watching the lights flick on one by one across the neighborhood, the bell tower quietly chiming the passing hour. Katarina joined me, bundling her daughter close. She looked at me the way she had when we were children, racing through the alleyways after stray dogs. "You came home," she said quietly. "I had to," I replied. "Everything good I built from here, even if I had to leave to see it." She smiled, soft and teary. "I'm glad you did." As the people spilled back into the night, laughter and small talk echoing off the wet cobbles, I felt something old and tight inside me loosen. A hard life, a colder city, and years of doubt all distilled into a simple thing. The strength to take ridicule and shape it into beauty, to return home bearing something undeniably my own. The community still did not understand all of what I'd become, and perhaps they never would. But they fed with me, and for the first time I felt seen, not for the dream, not for the apparent folly, but for what I'd shared. A table, a story, a piece of tenderness chased and finally found.